Differences between a psychopath and a sociopath. They are psychological terms that are used to refer to two types of antisocial personality disorder. However, there are some general differences between these two types of personality. Both personality types have a general pattern of disregard for the safety and rights of others. Deception and manipulation are central characteristics in both personality types, and contrary to popular belief, both a psychopath and a sociopath are not necessarily violent. The common characteristics between a psychopath and a sociopath defines the antisocial personality as someone who presents three or more of the following traits: regularly transgresses the law, constantly tells lies and deceives others, is impulsive and does not plan for the future, it can be prone to fighting and aggressiveness, has little regard for the safety of others, is irresponsible and fails to meet financial obligations, and feels no remorse or guilt. Symptoms usually appear before the age of 15, so that when these individuals reach adulthood they are already on the way to becoming psychopaths or sociopaths. Traits of a psychopath. General psychology researchers believe that psychopaths tend to be born with this characteristic, or what is the same, that it is a genetic predisposition, while sociopaths are generated due to their environment. For this reason, it is believed that psychopathy could be related to physiological brain differences. Studies have shown that psychopaths are less active in certain areas of the brain, those believed to be responsible for emotional regulation and impulse control. Psychopaths, in general, have difficulty generating real emotional ties with others. On the contrary, their relationships are usually artificial and superficial, designed to be manipulated for their own benefit. They see people as pawns to be used with the intention to achieve their goals. These people rarely feel guilty about their behaviors, no matter how much they hurt others. Curiously, psychopaths can often be seen by others as charming and trustworthy people. They tend to have a very polite treatment. In addition, they are very stable, they work, and so on. Some even have seemingly normal family and love relationships. When a psychopath engages in criminal behavior, they tend to do so in a very cerebral way, greatly minimizing the risk to themselves. They know how to carefully plan their acts to make sure they are not caught and have contingency plans for all possibilities. We have numerous examples in film and television, such as Dexter, No Country for Old Men, or American Psycho. Traits of a sociopath. Researchers tend to believe that sociopathy is the result of environmental factors, such as a child or adolescent in a very negative home, with dysfunctional education patterns such as physical abuse, emotional abuse, or severe childhood trauma. Sociopaths in general tend to be more impulsive and erratic in their behavior than psychopaths, although they also have difficulty forming attachments with others. Some sociopaths may be able to form strong attachments with a like-minded group or person. Unlike psychopaths, most sociopaths do not have long-term jobs and carry out much of a normal family life in the outside world. When a sociopath engages in criminal behavior, it tends to do so in a tremendously impulsive and largely unplanned way, with little regard for the risks or consequences of their actions. They can easily become angry and aggressive, and often exhibit outbursts of anger. Violence. This type of behavior increases the chances that a sociopath will be caught by the authorities. Some examples of sociopaths in the cinema are, for example, in A Clockwork Orange, Alex DeLarge, or the Joker from Batman. Psychopaths and sociopaths pose risks to society as they often try to live normal lives while coping with their illness, but psychopathy is probably the most dangerous illness, because they experience much less guilt with their actions. A psychopath also has a greater ability to dissociate from their actions. Without the emotional involvement, any pain suffered by others does not make sense for a psychopath. Many famous serial killers have been psychopaths, but beware, not all people are psychopaths or sociopaths. They have to be violent. Violence is not a necessary ingredient, nor is it for a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, although it is often present. The first signs of psychopathy and sociopathy are usually present in childhood. Most people who can later be diagnosed as sociopaths or psychopaths have had an initial pattern of antisocial behavior, in which they violate the basic rights of others in a way recurrent. They often break the rules or even laws and norms of society, even if they are minors. These antisocial behavior disorders in childhood and adolescence include 4 categories of problem behavior: assault on people and animals, destruction of property, deception or theft, and serious violations of the rules. Psychopathy and sociopathy are different cultural labels applied to the diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. Up to 3% of the population is considered to have an antisocial personality disorder. This disorder is more common among males and is mostly seen in people with a history of alcohol or drug abuse, and logically in settings such as prisons. Psychopaths tend to be more manipulative, so they can be seen by others even as charming people leading an almost normal life. In addition, they know how to minimize the risks of their criminal activities. Sociopaths tend to maintain behaviors much less calculated and more erratic. They are prone to fits of rage, unable to lead a normal life. When sociopaths engage in criminal activity, they often do so recklessly without considering the consequences. In short, sociopaths are generally less emotionally stable and highly impulsive. Their behavior tends to be more erratic than that of psychopaths. When committing crimes, whether violent or non-violent, sociopaths will act more out of compulsion. And they will lack patience, give in much more easily to impulsiveness, and lack detailed planning. Psychopaths will plan their crimes down to the smallest detail, taking calculated risks to avoid detection. The smart ones will leave few clues that can lead to getting caught. Psychopaths don't get caught up in the moment and make fewer mistakes as a result. But the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, has noted certain shared traits between known serial killers and these antisocial personality disorders. These include predatory behavior. For example, Ivan Milat, who hunted and murdered all 7 of his victims; sensation-seeking, hedonistic killers who murder out of enthusiasm or excitement, like Thomas Hemming, 21, who, in 2014, murdered 2 people just to find out what it feels like to kill; lack of remorse, impulsiveness and the need for control or power over others. Jack Kelsall, a case study, the Sydney murder of Morgan Huxley by 22-year-old Jack Kelsall, who possibly shows all the characteristics of a psychopath, highlights the differences between psychopaths and sociopaths. In 2013, Kelsall followed Huxley to his home where he indecently assaulted the 31-year-old before stabbing him 28 times. Kelsall showed no remorse for his crime, which was extremely violent and premeditated. Although the murder was frantic, Kelsall showed patience and planning. He had followed potential victims before and shared fantasies he had about murdering a stranger with a knife with his psychiatrist a year before killing Huxley, supposedly out of the thrill of doing so. Whatever Kelsall's motive, regardless of whether he was born with this dysfunction or developed it, the case is presented as an example of the worst possible outcome of antisocial personality disorder, senseless violence perpetrated against a random victim for the self-gratification of he. Throughout his trial and sentencing, Kelsall showed no signs of remorse, no guilt, and did not apologize. There are other important traits of psychopaths that we should all be aware of, because in the end, both they and sociopaths can be dangerous and even deadly. One last curious fact. Forensic psychiatrist Samuel Liestet, who has interviewed and diagnosed real psychopaths, along with 10 other psychiatrists, watched 400 movies to determine which are the most realistic psychopaths on the big screen and which are the most fake. It took psychiatrists 3 years to see that huge number of films that went back to 1915. When they finished, they had found 126 characters, 21 women and 105 men, who fit into antisocial personality disorder, which is where psychopathy fits. The least realistic are Tommy Udo from Kiss of Death, 1947. Norman Bates from Psycho, 1960. Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. And the most realistic are Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, 2007. Hans Beckert from M. the Vampire of Dusseldorf, 1931. Henry from Portrait of a Murderer, 1991.